Hello, Carrots here. Welcome to Oscar's Childhood Part 13. In this episode we're going to see some more of Oscar's little friends, most of whom he hasn't met yet. That's Mike's little sister Amy. She's playing in the clubhouse, is in their backyard. We met Mike in the last episode. Actually, most of the last episode was devoted to Mike and his family, and we saw Amy age up from toddler to child. Somewhat later we see day dawning over Lucky Palms. Lucky Palms, which is where quite a few of Mike's relatives live. And Oscar will be undoubtedly visiting Lucky Palms at some stage in his future. So if you can get to know some of the locals, not the locals that you might know if you already own Lucky Palms, but the locals that I've put in here, well, that might help you later on. You'll also recognise some of them eventually as they flock through the boarding school in Chocolate Cake Island, which is where Oscar lives and will live for quite some time, at least until the end of his childhood. That's Mike's backyard we're looking at the moment. There's Amy. She's finally left the tree house and now she's sleeping in her own little bed. Now, Mike's father, Mark, is in the gardening career. It's got nothing to do with his lifetime wish. He's just a gardener. And I thought it would be appropriate for him to have a garden, but I didn't want it upstairs to mess up with the look of Lucky Palms. So they've got a garden in the basement. Lots of gnomes in this house. Actually, whenever you find a family with this house, there will be lots of gnomes because I saved lots of gnomes with the house. Mark planted this garden some time ago and he hasn't tended it at all, and I was a bit worried it might die before he even got started growing anything. So he's down there watering. Initially, I get Sims who are new to the game to do all the gardening themselves, so they get a high gardening skill. But I've discovered that Mark has already got level 10 in gardening. So next time I play this household, I will be hiring the gardening service, which is a mod, and it's available at Mod The Sims. If you're interested in getting the gardening service, the gardeners come and do all your gardening for you and put the harvested items in the fridge at the end of every day. It costs money, of course, but then your Sims are free to do other things and their garden doesn't die. And you can search for the gardening service at Mod The Sims. That must be the car for Maria to go to work, or the school bus, one or the other. This is the first time I've put a basement in one of these houses. I use this house quite a lot. You'll actually become familiar with it if you watch all my videos, because it's in a few worlds now. It's just convenient. It's really adaptable for all sorts of families. We had a close look at the structure of this house in an earlier episode, so I won't go through it all for you again now. It's been a while since I last did a video. Sorry for the long delay. I had to drive to visit my son in Cairns. He's recently moved to Cairns. That's in far north Queensland. And I've had his little dogs living with me for 4 and a bit years. I didn't want to put them on the aeroplane because they're getting a bit old now, and little puppies, they don't like flying much. So I drove them up. I also had the benefit then of having a car with me to go and do other things while I was up there. I had my other son with me, the son who lives here, and we shared the driving on the way up. But he flew back after a couple of days. It took me 3 days to drive back because I stopped off and visited relations in a few places. But when I got back, I was just so exhausted I couldn't do anything. But hopefully this is the beginning of another new year. Very successful and busy year. I have lots of things planned. That's the wall of digital fishiness in the background behind Mark. He looks so much like his father with that hairdo. I keep going to call him Marty, but he's not, it's Mark. And his son's called Mike. So I've got myself a bit of a problem there remembering who's who. Marty's an elder now and he doesn't live in this world, but he is still alive. That wall of digital fishiness is found in the Windows section of build mode, and it is something that came with the late night expansion pack. I like putting it in my basements occasionally. Oh look, the puppy's bringing him the paper. Have to see if he will you have to get him to read the newspaper. Yes, I don't like that group science project that's hanging around outside. All the local Sims come and use it. And it needs 4 levels because big flame comes out the top of it. And there's 4 levels available in the basement. So I dig down for 4 levels and I put it in the bottom. So when the Sims go down there and start playing with it and the flame comes up, there's plenty of room for it. And even when the flame isn't up, you can't place anything on the floor that's directly above the flame. That area is reserved by the game. And that can lead to confusion. You can think that there's something wrong that you can fix, and the only thing that's wrong is you've put the group science project and you haven't left empty space for 4 levels above it, or 3 levels above it. It uses its own level plus another 3 levels for the flame. So there we go. Mark is going to read the newspaper. I wonder if there's going to be any interesting news in that newspaper. There's still plenty of room in this house to add furniture and decorations and things. I've got the minimal things in here because this is not the main family at the moment. I'm playing the boarding school mostly, so I just need to keep the boarding school going. The other houses are just support houses for my games. Wow, Tom Fields and Olwen Murray got married. That's interesting. I'll have to go and investigate that. You see, Tom and Olwen, they've been together for some years. The game moved them in together. I'm not too sure if there's ever been any real romance between them, but at one stage, when I was playing the big game properly, I gave them an instant baby because they'd been living together forever, and I just used Master Controller, the mod, the NRAS mod, Master Controller, to make her have a baby, and I got Tom to be the donor. So they had this little boy, Ephraim, which the game named, and him having that name, I know I wasn't controlling the household when he was born. He has just come home from the boarding school where he completed his toddler skills. So Ephraim came home from the boarding school as a toddler, and I'm going to go over to his house shortly and age him up, because I want to investigate this bit about his parents getting married, because not so long ago I was playing, this is before I started doing the video of this particular world, and I was going to get Olwen and Tom to get married, and then I discovered that Tom had a love interest and she lived in another world. I had a little think about the situation and decided the best course of action would be to get him to break up with her, because I don't know how they became love interests. They had both been to the boarding school as teens. They might have met at the boarding school. I don't know. Anyway, it was time for them to break up. So I tried to get him to send her a breakup text, but he couldn't send her a text of any description. So I sent him to the world where she's living, it's Dark Harbour. Anyway, I sent him specifically to break up with her because I didn't want him to have a love interest while he was married to somebody else. So there it was. He went to visit her, and while I was there I got a bit distracted and I left him in the world with her while I went and sorted out a few things in some other households, which is something I like to do. And when I got back to their household, far from breaking up, they'd actually got married. So I thought, well, I guess he could be married to her just as easily as to Olwen, because there wasn't any actual romance with Olwen. I was going to have to work on that. So I allowed them to stay married, and they had a couple of babies. And then he came back here to Lucky Palms to break up with Olwen. I wasn't too worried about Ephraim. I thought, well, I've got a few of those sort of things going on in the game already, and he could actually grow up with either parent. It didn't really matter. But all I did was I put Tom back in with Olwen and Ephraim and his son, you see. Then I decided I'd go and sort out Oscar. And I've brought Mike back here to be with his family, not thinking about what's going on in the Field and Murray household. So that's the Genie couple. That's Rita Genie and her husband. She's in bot form. She's done that by herself as well. So now I see in the newspaper that Olwen and Tom have got married. And I'm wondering how that could have happened, because he's already married to Donna in another world. So it's a little bit mysterious. We'll have to investigate that shortly. Those pair are married. We'll have a look at their household later. I think they've got a son or a daughter. Because at one stage I went around all of the households where there were pairs of Sims living, whether they were married or not, and gave them instant babies. And I'm pretty sure that was a couple that I did that to, even though they were married. I didn't want to play the household, so I just gave them an instant baby. And then I wondered why my world suddenly got so overpopulated that I couldn't play it anymore. And now I've been moving them to all different worlds. So this time, when I go around, I'm going to actually age up a few of the toddlers to make them children, especially if, well, only the toddlers that have completed their toddler skills. I'll check that first. And I may actually start a few pregnancies while I'm at it. I think I'll be more careful with who I make pregnant in future. I'll probably be happily married, already have children, possibly. That's fascinating, that cat terrorising something. I don't know what it's shredding. It reminds me of the cat in Isla Paradiso bunch that keeps shredding Judy's feet. And she's the witch, that's supposed to be her familiar, and it hates her. Every time it sees her, it scratches her feet. So that little park is right next to Mike's house. This dog, most of the dogs in the households at the moment are getting very old. It's an elder. I think they've all got to the maximum possible age. They're just waiting for the Grim Reaper to spin the right number for them. Their number will be up. But so far since I've been here, I haven't seen the Grim Reaper coming to any of them. There's Amy playing in the sand pit. She's finished her toddler school. She's aged up to child, but she's only just aged up to child. She's the first of the toddlers that I've aged up in this world in this session of play. And she will be going to the boarding school before she ages up to teen, because she's still got all of her child skills to do. I could get her to do them here before I move on, but I want to get around town and do things with the rest of the Sims in Lucky Palms while I've got a chance, rather than spend time individually teaching them their skills for their particular age stage at the time, or life stage. They can work on their skills together en masse at the boarding school later on. And the other benefit of the boarding school is they get to meet other Sims. And in Amy's case, she'll undoubtedly meet cousins that live in different worlds when she finally gets to go to boarding school, because she's got lots of relations. Her grandfather, Marty, had 5 children with Patience, because in the very beginning, Patience and Marty were married and they had 5 children. And then Patience ran away with Tobias, and Marty stayed with his children to look after them with the help of Marcy. And eventually Marty and Marcy had a son, Mark, who happens to be Amy's father. And then Marty and Marcy got married and they had 4 more children. So Marty had 10 children altogether, and Amy's father is one of those 10 children. Most of Marty and Marcy's children have not had children of their own yet. However, most of the children Marty had with Patience have had 2 or more children. Okay, so we've left the house of Mike and his family, and this is Hayley's place, and there's lots of toddlers. Now, I think that these toddlers I'm going to be able to stretch their ages out by managing how they go to boarding school. Because when toddlers go to boarding school, they age up if I'm playing the boarding school, but the family left behind doesn't age, because that's how I've got the game set. Because I don't want them to age, I want to have time to teach all these children how to, all their skills. I've got the eldest of the children that Hayley had with Tobias at the boarding school in Chocolate Cake Island. She has just aged up to child, and she'll stay there while she does her child skills. When Kathleen returns home, I will pick up the eldest of the toddlers who are currently at home with Hayley and take her to the boarding school in Chocolate Cake Island. Hayley's had a few children with a few different men, and one of them is Shark Racket. And mostly when I tell a Sim to do something peculiar, like go off with some other bloke, they ignore me. But I told Hayley to go over and see Shark, and she went straight across the road, because Shark just lives across the road, round the corner a bit. And there's hearts. Now I'm going to push the envelope here a bit, and I'm going to see just what they will do. I'm only going to tell them once. If they say no, that's it. Not going to happen. But I want to see if they'll try for baby. She's got 2 with Shark Racket already. This is an example of Hayley being a bit odd. She'll do anything. If I married her to Shark Racket, she'd leave him. She'd go and live with somebody else. Because I have had her with so many different Sims, and when I go to play a different household, she just goes. But she's currently married to another Sim. You saw him a while ago with all those toddlers, and she's staying with him. So I don't really understand her. She's older now. She's almost an elder. So she seems to be chasing the younger Sims. She seems to like to have Sims who are very different in age from her, because when she was just aged up to young adult, she was only interested in elders. And now she is an adult and almost an elder herself. She wants the young ones, because Shark has been a young adult for a while now, but he's a lot younger than she is. Now I just got this pair started. Most of this behaviour is them just doing it autonomously. I am going to tell them to try for baby though, and we'll see what happens. I'm a bit surprised that Shark would even want to talk to her though, because they were an item before she even met the Sim that she eventually married, and she already had a child with Shark before she met Julius, who this is the Sim she's married to now. Shark does seem to be happy to see her though. They are having a lot of fun together, and they rarely do this. She's mostly at home with the children. Perhaps she just wanted to get out for a while. I think she does have at least one with her husband though, one toddler. She still hasn't had as many babies as her mother did.
What?
They're certainly taking their time. Maybe they realise it's going to be all over once she's pregnant. Or at least once they try for baby, regardless if she's pregnant or not. Yes, Shark lives on his own with a puppy. The puppy's being a bit vocal there at the moment. Harley's put on some random outfit that I don't know where she got. Success! It sounds very much like Miss Haley is pregnant again. Yes, she's pregnant. She's going to have a baby boy. This is from Master Controller. You can actually work out, check the Sims relationship status using NRAS Master Controller. So Haley can go home now and help take care of all the other toddlers she's already got. That's Julius, her husband. He doesn't seem the slightest bit fazed by the situation. I think he knew what he was getting into before he married her. That little toddler that he's holding at the moment. No, it's not him. I'll leave Haley and Shark together and head off over to Tom and Olwen's place to see what's going on there. And then I've either got to break them up, but then they've just got married, haven't they? Maybe I'll have to send Tom to Dark Harbour to have a chat with Donna, who is the one he married in Dark Harbour that we were talking about earlier in this video. So here we go. Tom and Olwen's place in Lucky Palms. Tom Fields is Haley's half-brother. They are both children of Patience. Haley's father is Marty and Tom's father is Ted. And here is the family tree showing Tom and Olwen with baby Ephraim. And they do seem to be quite a couple, don't they? This is how I found them. They're not at home, they are out at a venue somewhere. The way I see the situation, Tom has a problem. He has 2 wives apparently. Each have had at least 1 child with him. I didn't tell him to marry either of them. Both marriages happened when I was out playing a different household. And it seems that neither of the women knows about the other. But Tom knows about them both, and he wants only one, but he can't work out which one. It seems the wives live in 2 different worlds, and Tom visited Donna in Dark Harbour to break up when he decided that he wanted to marry Olwen. Tom's confused, but back at home, Ephraim is about to age up. Time passes, and Tom and Olwen are about to have a child rather than a toddler. Remember, Ephraim has been to boarding school, and he's read all of his toddler books and learnt all of his toddler skills. He's a very well-prepared young child, so we get to choose his trait. And he's going to go into Creator Sim because I don't like his hairdo. Use Master Controller to get him into Stylist. Give him some hair. That's a custom content hair. Who it's by? It could be Casey, but I'm not sure. Just make sure he's got eyelashes and their eyebrows are the same colour as his hair roots. I think those eyebrows are by Tifa. Eventually, Tom dragged himself out of the hot tub and went home, and then read a story to Ephraim for the first time ever. Then it was time to go to sleep. He still hadn't made up his mind. Which wife was he going to keep and which wife was he going to dump? It was a bit of a problem. Now, Tom was still very confused about how things had gone so badly wrong when he had visited Donna in Dark Harbour. He went there with the best of intentions. All he was going to do was explain to her that they needed to be just good friends from now on instead of romantic interests, because he'd found Olwen and they had a child and he was going to marry Olwen. Things just didn't happen the way he expected they would. When he got to Dark Harbour, it seems things got out of hand a little and Donna became pregnant And then Donna's father seems to have stepped in and given Tom the ultimatum that he had to marry his daughter. So Tom did as he was told, because Donna's father was a genuinely scary bloke. He was a superstar athlete and looked a bit like he was also a mafia boss. He wasn't really, he was really a nice bloke, but Tom was a bit worried. So that night, just before they watched the stars together, Tom asked her to marry him. He proposed marriage, and she was so excited. She didn't expect that to happen. She didn't know anything about the conversation that her father had had with Tom earlier. So now Tom had to worry about what he was going to do about Olwen and Ephraim. It looks like a return visit to Lucky Palms is on the cards. But here it is. Donna is pregnant. On the other hand, Olwen and Tom have been roommates for years, and they, at one point in their status as roommates, Olwen became pregnant with Tom's baby, Ephraim, and they stayed living together, and they've got used to each other, and they depend on each other. And Tom is a family-oriented sim, so having Ephraim in his family tree means a lot to him. But Donna, well, he's known Donna since they were children. They were at school together. They were sweethearts at high school. Donna's parents have seen Tom grow up. Admittedly, some aspects of his home life did worry them quite a lot, but we'll go into that in another episode. Donna grew up with Tom. They'd lived in the same small town and attended the same schools. When he moved away from the world that they had grown up in, Sunset Valley, and Donna also moved away to a different world, they lost touch with each other. But Donna had never forgotten him. She always dreamt of Tom, and she would one day end up together. Tom thought of Donna as well, but he was occupied with his own life, and he'd met up with Olwen, and he was comfortable with Olwen, and she was comfortable with him. It had been very tempestuous at times early on, especially when she became pregnant after a crazy night, but it had got to the point where she wanted more children, and Tom wanted more children, so they had decided to get married. That's why Tom tracked down Donna, because he knew that there was an understanding between them that they would one day marry, and he wanted to make sure that she didn't spend her life waiting for him to come back. And that's why he'd come back, to find her and release her from the promise. But things hadn't quite worked out the way he'd planned. I don't have any actual plans for how this is going to turn out. I think Tom is a very impulsive individual. He feels a sense of responsibility for Olwen and Ephraim, but he definitely has a lot in common with Donna as well, and things have got complicated as a result of him trying to do the right thing by her. We'll leave what will undoubtedly become a very entangled relationship for future episodes. In the next episode, we'll take up from this point, and Tom will go home to Lucky Palms, and we'll continue meeting the residents of Lucky Palms before Elouise returns to Chocolate Cake Island, and we begin Oscar's education at the Chocolate Cake Island boarding school. So thank you for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. If you have enjoyed it, please consider hitting the like button that's down below, and perhaps even subscribe to my channel if you would like to see how things untangle with the various residents of the different worlds in this interesting game. Thank you for watching. Bye bye for now, and happy simming, and Happy New Year.